Hello and welcome to another episode of the CPMC podcast. I am MC, as always, joined by CP. Chris, what's going on with you tonight?
Not much, man. We got a great league to look at tonight. We're just going to dive right in. I mean, this is the 10th year of this league, so 10th anniversary. It's a redraft league, 10 teams, super flex. It's going to be a fun one tonight.
Yeah, guys out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Chris, one of the things that I like about this league is, and I've been trying to get this into our home league forever, is a punishment for the team that loses. And we've got this guy, Keller, in this league who has been tasked with eating 24 Eggo waffles
Wow.
as his penalty for losing. And what good is a consequence for losing if you don't pay up? And this guy's lost twice and not eaten these Eggo waffles. I think he owes 48 Eggo waffles immediately for this transgression.
We went out a couple weeks ago and had about 1,000 wings, and we were keeled over for 3 days. I think our man here owes it to the league to eat those waffles and then be miserable for the next week.
Yes, pay up your dues. The other thing that I wanted to point out as well, Chris, is this guy Jansen doesn't show up to the draft because of a broken, get this one, Chris, a broken eardrum.
I'm sure there's a story behind that, but I'm going to go ahead and rule that as a valid excuse to not make the draft. I've never had a broken eardrum, but I've heard, no pun intended, that it is quite miserable of an experience. So I do not envy him.
I'm going to actually call BS on this one, Chris, because the only eardrum issue that I've ever heard of is a ruptured eardrum. A eardrum is not a bone to be broken, as far as I know. I'll be Googling that at some point during the show tonight.
What are you, Nurse Matt over here? Come on, what is this? We get technical medical terms. Come on.
Listen, you can't rupture a bone and you can't break a tendon. I mean, this is anatomy and physiology 101 here, Chris. Go back to school, learn your stuff here.
Jeez,
Uh,
teacher 24/7 over here.
listen, it's what I do. I got to get ready for school. Let's not talk about it's discussion for another day. All right, Chris, let's dive into this thing. Let's get to these 10 teams. We got a 10-team superflex redraft. All we're looking at here, Chris, is contender pretender. We'll take a look at these starting lineups. It does play a little bit deep for a redraft, but at the end of the day, there's 100 starters league wide here, so we really have to be nitpicky. So it's a redraft league, and there's 10 teams. Every team is going to be good, but that's what you bring us here for, Chris, is to pick through this and figure out who's a legit contender and who's a pretender.
Let's do it.
All right. First team up, Chris, we've got Jay Weissman looking at a lineup with Stafford, Eckler, Barkley, DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Darren Waller, Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison, and Geno Smith. Um, Depth pieces of Jimmy G, Mac Jones, Damian Harris, Juju, Zay Jones, Curtis Samuel, Paris Campbell, and Sky Moore. Chris, I'm going to start off by saying this is a pretender. I need to see more from this team. And I'm looking at this back end, and I'm going to include Christian Kirk in that back end, along with Aaron Jones and Jordan Addison. Quarterbacks, major question mark situation. I don't have anything I can really hang my hat on other than these running backs. I'm going to go with pretender here, Chris, to start things off.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree. I wanted to say contender, but after seeing these running backs, I really wanted to say contender. But I'm with you here. We've got this Geno Smith DK Metcalf combo. Can it happen again? I don't know. We're relying on a rookie wide receiver, Jordan Addison. His weakness at quarterback is evident, as he had to use two valuable bench spots on Jimmy G and Mac Jones, just hoping one of those two guys hits, or Geno Smith, lights it up again this year. So I'm with you. This is a pretender for me.
All right, Chris, let's move on to Jansen here. I know we probably can't hear this because of his broken eardrum. We're going to put the captions on to help him out a little bit. He's got Justin Fields, Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, Amon Ra, Terry McLaurin, Mike Williams, Dallas Goedert, Jacoby Myers, Gabe Davis, and Daniel Jones. Talking about his bench piece, we got Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Kamara, DJ Chark, Alan Lazard, Alec Pierce, guy that I do like in the dynasty realm, and Cole Kmet. Boy, Chris, looking through these teams earlier, this was going to be one of the ones I really struggled to put as a contender or pretender. I'm actually leaning towards pretender here, Chris, only because Jacoby Myers and Gabe Davis should be nowhere near a starting lineup in this format.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way, Matt. I'm going to go contender here because I think if this team can navigate the first couple weeks of the season without Kamara, I think you can plug him in one of those flex spots. And I think it's just a good balanced team here with McCaffrey and Jacobs. You've got the rushing attack of Justin Fields and Daniel Jones. Good wide receivers as well with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Terry McLaurin. Listen, in redraft, we know you can always kind of fill in your last couple flex spots. And with Alvin Kamara sort of waiting in the wings, you grab a hot waiver pickup, or maybe even Alan Lazard steps in one of those last flex spots. I'm going contender here. I think he's got elite talent, at least one at every position. So I'm going to go contender here.
Boy, Chris, that Jacoby Myers, Gabe Davis at the end. I mean, that I hope is going to be the worst two players that we see in a starting lineup the rest of the way.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, listen, they're not great, but listen, you got 3 weeks, and then you plug Kamara in there for whoever, Myers, I guess, and then we'll figure it out from there. You know how redraft goes. It's you got to play the waivers as much as anything.
All right, Chris, let's move on to the next team. We've got El Goo 15 here. We've got Herbert, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Keenan Allen, Christian Watson, Deontay Johnson, Travis Kelce, Antonio Gibson, and Brandon Cooks. We've got Jared Goff in that super flex spot. Looking at his depth pieces, we've got Desmond Ridder, we've got Rashawn Johnson, Dalvin Cook, Samaje Perine Gainwell, Jaden Reed, Jahan Dotson, and Greg Dulcich. Oh boy, Chris, we're weak on the back end as well, but I'm actually going to go contender here, Chris. I love these quarterbacks. I think that's going to put him over the top. Running backs, he's going to have a great little duo here with Henry and Pollard. Keenan Allen is an anchor in redraft. Listen, he's got to be going, in my opinion, top 4 rounds in redraft. I know Dynasty is slipping a little bit more because of the age, but really love this here. I don't know who else Jordan Love has to throw the ball to other than Christian Watson. So I think he's going to be fine out there in Green Bay. Deontay Johnson, he's got the hammer, Travis Kelce. So I'm going contender here, Chris, with El Goo.
I'm with you as well here. I'll go contender. I think this is the best team we've seen so far. I think this is a strong contender, in my opinion. I like that he's balanced everywhere. Kelsey is just such an advantage at tight end right now. Yeah, he's a little weak on the back end with Gibson and Cooks, but those guys aren't zeros. And I love his bench here. This is what really gets me with this team is I love his bench, right? We've got a starting third quarterback in Desmond Ridder, guy, who can rush a little bit. We've got two three, maybe even four, if you want to include Kenny Gainwell in here. Quality running backs on the bench here. Dalvin Cook's going to see plenty of run. He signed a good contract. Roshan Johnson's a guy I've really been scooping up in dynasty drafts in that second round of rookie drafts. I think he's got a real chance to be the guy out there in Chicago, by week 3, week 4. And Samaje Perine, I mean, an all-time CPMC favorite there. So I love what he's got on the bench to go with just a quality lineup up and down. So to me, it's the best team we've seen so far.
Chris, I'm going to interject for a second, take a little side note. I see all the love coming out of Philly for Kenny Gainwell right now. A big piece today talking about how Swift's not going to be the guy. Swift's going to be the change of pace guy because his body can't handle everything. You know who the change of pace guy was last year for the Philadelphia Eagles? Kenny Gainwell. And now suddenly he's the bruiser here that they're just not going to give the ball to Swift. At first, I checked. I'm a 40% Swift owner. That's not a joke for where I'm at right now. So I was a little bit nervous, but the more I kind of peel the layers back, I'm not buying that. Are you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, they're talking about Rashad Penny carrying the load. When's the last time Rashad Penny had a healthy season? Rashad Penny carrying the load, Swift as the change of pace, and then Kenny Gainwell is like the number 2. I mean, come on, get out of here with that noise. I think it's all nonsense. I think Swift's going to get, the bulk of the touches there. I mean, I don't know if it'll be carries necessarily. I think, maybe Penny and Gainwell kind of split the carries and Swift gets his fair share of carries, maybe 10 carries plus maybe 5 targets, 6 targets. I mean, that's plenty. You can do a lot in that Philly offense with, 15 to 18 touches a game, which I think is where Swift's going to be.
Boy, I certainly hope so, Chris. All right, let's move on, Chris. We've got Ryan Rivera up next. Ryan Rivera. We've got Joe Burrow, Jonathan Taylor, Brees Hall, Tyreek Hill, Debo Samuel, Jerry Judy, Evan Ingram, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, and Jordan Love. Bench pieces are Kyler, the aforementioned Rashad Penny, Devin Singletary, Rashee Rice, Adam Thielen, Nico, Rondale Moore, and David Njoku. Oh man, Chris, if Jonathan Taylor was a full go, and none of these little issues here, I think I'd be in the contender conversation. Same thing with Brees Hall. I think there's a little bit of cause for concern out there as a result of Dalvin Cook being there. I'm still going to go with contender though, Chris. I guess that was my long-winded way of saying I think it's going to be fine. I think they're going to be okay here. I'm going contender.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go contender here too. I just love these running backs. Yes, I understand the Jonathan Taylor situation. I think Brees Hall falling to the fourth or fifth round, wherever he's going in redraft now. I know he is slipping. I'm not sure the exact ADP, but I think he's a slam dunk buy at that price in redraft. I'm all over him there. Swift and Akers, I think, are strong buys for where they're going in redraft as well. And listen, Tyreek Hill, he's going to get 8,000 targets there in Miami again. No one can stop him. To me, the key for this team, though, is what happens with Kyler Murray. I don't feel comfortable with Jordan Love as my number two, but I sure as heck feel comfortable with him as my number three and Kyler as my number two. So let's see what happens there. I think that's sort of the big key for this team to put it all together. I'm going to go with contender, but I mean, there's an easy way to see where this thing can go wrong. I see a lot of different outcomes for this team just based on all the question marks he has. But listen, in a redraft, I'm drafting for upside, and this team's got it in spades.
Yeah, volatile, I think is an appropriate word for this team, Chris. Really top to bottom. I don't think there's anybody on here without at least a single question mark. Debo Samuel, what's his target share going to be looking like? Jerry Judy, with Sean Payton out there in Denver now. Swift, we talked about Cam Akers, Jordan Love, and then Kyler Murray. Joe Burrow's a little bit banged up as well. So, yeah, I think you said it perfectly. There's a number of different possibilities for this team. So let's move on here. We've got Lon Shimmy or Lan Shimmy. Either one here. We've got Kirk Cousins, Nick Chubb, Damian Pierce, Jamar Chase, Steph Diggs, and George Pickens. We got Mark Andrews, Kenneth Walker, Brian Robinson, and Derek Carr. Depth pieces here. We've got Bryce Young, Raheem Mostert, Mingo, Odell Beckham, Michael Thomas, who I'm loving more and more, Tyler Boyd, MVS, and Dalton Schultz. Oh man, Chris, all the redraft guys are saying go heavy wide receiver early. And it looks like that's what this team did here with Jamar Chase and Steph Diggs. It's a 3 wide receiver league. I love Kirk Cousins. Oh man, Chris, this is a tough one for me. Ugh. I'm defaulting to you, Chris. What do you got here? I can't do it. I have him dead square in the middle.
I I think I'm gonna go pretender here, Matt. I don't love Damian Pierce. I know people do. I don't love Kenneth Walker. I know people do. I mean, Brian Robinson to me is not a guy I'm all about. I like the depth he's got here. I think he's got a quality bench that could really pop for him. But in the end, I think I'm going to go pretender here. But I'm with you. It's very, very close. I think it's just enough guys with question marks for me, or guy. Maybe I'm having my own bias in here. But there's just guys I don't like on this team. Guys I wouldn't draft at their ADP. And that's going to put him as a pretender for me. But it's very, very close. I mean, I think he's right in the middle. To me, I think it's a matter of, hey, does Kenneth Walker continue this year? Does George Pickens take a step up? Does Damian Pierce take a step up? Those three guys for me are sort of the heart and soul of where this team can go. If they're quality players and they produce, I think this team could make the playoffs. If they don't, which is what I expect, I think he's out of the playoffs and a pretender.
Man, Chris, all right. I mean, I'll even things out here and call him a contender. I do like the wide receiver depth that he has here. I think that's very apparent. I think these three guys that are starting are going to be very good. Michael Thomas sitting there on the bench. I mean, Kenneth Walker and Brian Robinson are probably projected to lead their team in carries. Nick Chubb and Damian Pierce. It's possible he's got four workhorses, Chris, that he's started. He's got the number two tight end. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because this looks like a team that we would probably build, Chris. When you're, for quarterback situation, you're digging in the Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr bin, and then add an upside quarterback on the bench in the rookie and Bryce Young. So, man, I think that's the bias in me that's keeping me in the contender. But I'll stick with that. You have a problem with it?
I think it's close, man. I'm going to stick with pretender. You stick with contender, and we'll go from there.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's go to Espo up next, Chris. We got Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, Jamal Williams, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, and Trevor Lawrence. Guys on the bench for Espo, we've got Baker, the new starting quarterback back out in Tampa, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, James Cook, Jalen Warren, Zach Charbonnet, Michael Gallup, and KJ Osborne. This is another tough one, Chris. Oh, he's got the upside. Oh, man. I'm a little bit worried at running back, Chris. What happens when Jamal Williams, I assume he's going to cough up some sort of touch situation to Alvin Kamara. It'll be interesting to see what. He's got the rushing quarterbacks. He's got upside there. Oh man, Drake London. I just don't know what's going to happen there. Kyle Pitts, I think, is limiting the upside. I'm going to go pretender, Chris, but oof, that could burn me, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite. We're going to disagree on this one too. I'm going to go contender here. Matt, do you know who this year's Jamal Williams is? The guy who vultures all the touchdowns, and you're sick of him in fantasy.
Jamal Williams.
It's Jamal Williams. That's exactly right. He's this year's Jamal Williams yet again. I like this team. I like the upside of this team. I think you've got Garrett Wilson ready to just go off, possibly be the wide receiver one on the year, or at least compete with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase for that title. I think Drake London takes a step up. I'm slightly worried about having both London and Pitts on this team. I just don't think there's going to be enough targets to go around for both. So I wouldn't be afraid to pivot off one of those guys, if the situation presents itself. I just don't think that's an offense that's going to light up the scoreboard. But I like what he's got on the bench here. David Montgomery, I think it's a very quality, RB3 or flex play. Khalil Herbert, I think is going to get his run. James Cooks looks good in the preseason. We'll see what happens there. So I like his bench. I like his starting lineup. I'm going to go contender. But again, another close one. We'll agree to disagree on him too.
All right, Chris, let's go over to N Parrots here. Our next team up, we've got Jalen Hurts, J.K. Dobbins, Rashad White, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Sam Laporta at tight end, Chris Godwin, Jackson Smith, and Jigba at flex, Russell Wilson at super flex. Guys on the bench, we got Tannehill, Lance. Not great news for him today. Isaiah Pacheco, Shane, Cortland Sutton, Traylon Burks, Jameson Williams, and Marvin Mims. Chris, I love this team. Absolutely love it. Could I see things going sideways here with this running back situation? It's possible, right? You got Pacheco as your really only depth piece on the bench to back up these two guys, Dobbins and Rashad White. But man, this wide receiver core is elite. Hurts is elite. It's deep through and through this entire starting lineup. A little bit of depth. I love this team here, Chris. Give me contender, and I might say the best team we've seen so far.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree on all counts. Definitely. I think Matt, speaking of Trey Lance, I think it's safe to drop him in redraft. I'm dropping him already. We don't need him. Let him sit on the waiver wire. Pick somebody else up who's more useful. But yeah, I like this team a lot as well. Yeah, running back's a little bit of an issue, but I like Pacheco as my third. I like a Shane as a flyer. We've got a lot of talent here. I'd look for some sort of consolidation trade, as a matter of fact, with guys I have on the bench if they pop, whether that's Traylon Burks or Cortland Sutton or Jameson Williams when he comes back. JSN, I think, is an interesting piece. I think that's kind of, he's kind of dealing with that injury that popped up now. So we'll see what happens there. That could kind of snake bite this team a little bit if, one of his bench pieces doesn't step up early in the season. At JSN, I'm talking about maybe missing 3 weeks. So we'll see there. But yeah, I'm with you here. It's the best team we've seen so far. Definite contender.
All right, Chris, let's move over to the JK Panthers. JK Panther 98. I've got Deshaun Watson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Miles Sanders, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, TJ Hawkinson, Mike Evans, James Conner, and Aaron Rodgers. Guys on the bench, we've got Purdy, Zeke, Foreman, Braxton Berrios, Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Romeo Dobbs, and Jalen Hyatt. It might be the worst bench that we've seen so far, Chris. But listen, this starting lineup, I think, could compete with the team that we just saw. I love this team here. Look at those wide receivers, Chris, and quarterbacks. I mean, you've got guys through and through the lineup that are going to get a lot of opportunities to do what they do, right? So if these guys are producing, it's going to be because they're taking advantage of the volume that they're projected to get. Love this team here, Chris. I might say the 1B to the 1A that we just saw.
We're back in agreement here. I absolutely love this team as well. I'm not in redraft. I'm never really too concerned about my bench. I just want my starting lineup to be great, as good as possible. And I think this team has it, right? I mean, this is, one of the few teams we've seen that has just a complete starting lineup through and through, very balanced. I love Hawkinson at tight end. The running backs are very good, and Gibbs and Sanders and James Conner's a fine number three. Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, obviously elite. Watson and Rochester think going to be fine, give you enough. It's a really, really good team, really good starting lineup. This is a borderline great redraft team here from JK Panther. I love it. Yeah, depth may be an issue, but listen, you cycle the waiver wire here. It's, we're going to have plenty of options on waivers to shore things up. So, plus he's got some upside pieces like Elijah Moore and Kadarius Toney. So I like where this team is. Definite contender, like you said, 1B to our last team.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't know where Evans and Connor are regularly going in redrafts, but I feel like they're going to win a lot of people some leagues this year, Chris, because those are two really, really quality guys that should see a lot of touches in their respective situations. So well done there by Panther. Chris, let's shift over to our Powers 14 with a lineup of Josh Allen, Stevenson, Alexander Madison, AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, George Kittle, Michael Pittman, Hollywood Brown, and Dak Prescott. Guys on the bench, we've got CJ Stroud, AJ Dillon, Elijah Mitchell, Kendre Miller, Peoples Jones, Zay Flowers, and Chig Okonkwo. Oh man, Chris, because of the quarterbacks, I'm going to have to call this team a contender. I also like the wide receiver situation, but man, this running back situation scares me. The Patriots bring in Zeke, and we haven't heard a positive puff piece from Zeke in like 5 years. But they're coming out of the woodworks now saying how great Zeke has looked in Patriots camp since he's been there. So that scares me if people are starting to like Zeke again.
Yeah, I'm not buying that noise, not one bit. Having watched Zeke extensively over the last few years, I'm not buying that one bit. Listen, I'm going to go contender here as well. The running backs definitely leave a bit to be desired, but I think you could do worse than Ramondre Stevenson and Alexander Madison when the rest of your lineup looks this good. So I'm going to go contender as well. I love the quarterback situation. Hard not to like it. We've got some pieces on the bench that we could go forward with. So and the wide receivers are obviously were a point of emphasis in this draft. So I like it. I'm going to go contender. I think it's sort of a definitely a couple notches below our last couple teams, but still a contender for me.
All right, Chris, let's finish it out with our last team. We've got Kamadeka, 19, Kamadeka, something like that. We've got Mahomes. We've got Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, Devontae Adams, Nook Hopkins, Quentin Johnson, Pat Fryermuth, Najee Harris, Javante Williams, and Tua Tagovailoa. Bench pieces, we got Anthony Richardson, Jerick McKinnon, Al Jair, Darnell Mooney, Rashad Bateman, John Mechie, Tank Dell, and Dalton Kincaid. I've never seen so much love for Dalton Kincaid in my life than I've seen in my recent drafts. But Chris, this team is heavy elite. This is a very, very good team. I'm going to put him in that conversation with our 1A, 1B, and 1C. The only piece that I look at as being is Quentin Johnson here. I don't know what his target situation is going to look like. Hopefully, Keenan gets the ball every single time. But you've got the best quarterback. You've got Bijan Robinson, who's probably a top 5 running back right now. This wide receiver core is going to see a gazillion targets between Adams and DeAndre Hopkins. I think if Najee Harris and Javonte Williams give you just a fraction of what they probably should be doing, this team wins the title.
I want to disagree because it's fun when we disagree, but I do agree, and I also agree that those two guys on the back end, those two running backs, are really going to be the difference makers for this team, right? I mean, if those guys get their touches and get their catches, and they're healthy and producing, this team's going to be really, really tough to beat. I don't care if Quentin Johnson's my worst starter. Like I think Quentin Johnson could be very, very good as well this year, even as a rookie. So I'm with you here, man. I like this team. Even his quarterback 3 has tremendous upside, and Anthony Richardson. I'm with you here. This is my pick to win the title.
Wow, late in the show, you're gonna go with this pit team as your pick to win the title. I mean, I admire you for having the guts to make a call because I don't have them. I don't got the Cayunes to do it. 1, 2, and 3 here. I think it could go any way. There's some really good teams.
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, it's going to be competitive. Even those teams in that second tier, just how redraft is, man. You need one or two things to break right for you, and all of a sudden, you're taking it down. So that's kind of the beauty of it. But man, I love this team, and I'm sticking with them to the end.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This is fun doing this league, Chris, here. It almost makes me want to join a redraft league. Almost, I said. I still don't see myself doing that. I've sworn it off forever. But all right, that's gonna do it for us. One last message, Chris, before we sign off for the tonight. For tonight, I've got a message for Noah and Jason. And that's to please stop sucking at golf. That's gonna do it for us tonight. Have a great night and good luck this year.